Thanks everyone for making it today, and happy Thanksgiving to you all. We really appreciate you taking the time. We've got a jam-packed agenda today, so I'll quickly walk through what we've got in store, and then we'll get started. So I think you all can see my screen now. But thus far, to take you sort of through a journey, during our first session of this four-part conference, we introduced the concept of contemplative education. We talked about the work that Shen has undertaken over the past 20 years. At our last session, we got a little bit more deep into, again, what contemplative education really is. Today, we're going to get into the how. And so after this introduction is completed, we're going to have about a 50-minute presentation by Shiv on the systematic journey of contemplative education. And then, because we're getting into the how, we're actually going to spend 10 minutes to do a contemplation practicum, or an experiential learning part. After that, we'll break for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have Robin, our colleague, do a presentation and her reflections on what she's heard thus far. And then we'll conclude with a 1-hour discussion. And during the discussion part, we all have lots to say and share. And all I'd ask is that we be mindful that lots of people have lots to share, and so that we share the space and our time together so that we can get everybody's voices in. So we're not going to be doing breakout sessions like we did last time, but this will be a plenary discussion session, and we look forward to hearing from you. After our last session last week, we got a lot of feedback. We got a lot of tips and insights into different literature that's available to help deepen our understanding. And we really appreciate that. And all of this, of course, is working towards strengthening the proposal that was circulated to you about a week and a half ago. If somebody does not have a link to that proposal, please let us know and we will send it off. With that, I think that's all I have to say for now. So Thayaji, the floor is yours.
Okay, maybe I need to share my screen, and can you see this opening screen? And I also need to start my timer so that I don't go too much over. The topic today is the journey of contemplative exploration with the eye of the mind. We'll look at a systematic approach, and we look at what are the landmarks on the way so that we don't get lost when we are taking an inner journey. And that's what contemplative education is kind of a self-organized learning through a practice of contemplation. And I keep coming back to survival instincts because they're so important. That's what the whole thing is about. Survival instincts keep the gas pedal pushed too much, and we are running so fast that we cannot see. We lose our ability to see. We are driving to Toronto at 200 miles an hour. We don't see the landscape on the way. We just are rushing to get there. So this is what happens to us. Our body and mind are running so fast that we are left with no ability to actually see where we are going. And if we can't see, we are not really learning. We need to gain our sight back. Okay, pushing the brake pedal. Okay, we slow our body down, we slow our mind down. and pushing the brake pedal. And we'll talk about the brake pedal, how we push it, and um, and conscious deep breathing is an effective way for pushing the brake pedal. So that's what we will see, and how that connects with the contemplation that will come out. How instincts, our survival instincts, actually define us. If we look at our structure of our being from the point of view of the scripture or metaphysics or neurophysiology, we have a sensory faculty. That is the definition of a faculty of our mind through which we perceive things. And it's largely unconscious. Okay, so the Bible talks about that faculty as being a creaturely soul, because creatures, they live their life unconsciously mostly, whereas human beings have that ability and also ability of being conscious. And human beings pass through from the unconscious, pass through the subconscious, and then to the conscious. Okay, so the scriptures say that we have a sensory faculty and we have an ego identity that our sensory faculty defines. We are defined by what we like and how we live our life and how we earn our income and how many kids we got, that kind of thing. That kind of defines our identity. And then the identity is actually that acts on us subconsciously. Herd instincts are born out of that identity. And we also have a positive thing, which is called love and belonging. But that love and belonging, we take it as applicable only to those whom we love. So those who are through our body, our family, or those who satisfy our instincts, those people who are related with us somehow, our love and belonging is limited to that. And then we have an intellect. There is the rational part of the intellect, and then there's a part of the intellect which tends towards wisdom. Rational part divides, and that wisdom part unites. Okay, and contemplation, the deepest contemplation happens in this area, which is beyond the rational. It's beyond the unconscious, beyond the subconscious, and then the conscious rational. Beyond that, if we spend some time in this area, that changes our life, because then we are not connected with sensory faculty or its brainchild, which is called the ego identity. And the two combine to give us a way of thinking that is the rational thought. Okay, so we are then beyond the domain of the sensory faculty and the rationality that comes from it. And in that state, when we are in that state, when we are not connected with our instincts, then we can see things that we cannot see otherwise. Okay, so what we need to do is learn how to locate our consciousness in this area, beyond the rational intellect, beyond the herd identity, beyond the life with our family and our community only, so that we connect with what is beyond. And this here diagram, this part here shows the physical body and then sensory faculty and nervous system. So nervous system is a term used by our neurophysiology, and our scripture uses the word of sensory faculty. Okay, and then ego is the word from the scripture, and psycho-spiritual, you can say a term, whereas the brain is the neurophysiological term. Brain comes in different parts. So there is the lower brain, and there is the midbrain, and then there's a brain part which we used in thinking. We'll come to that. So we have an unconscious brain, and then we have a subconscious brain, and then we've got a conscious brain. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we got a feeling that, of life force, we are much more than our brain. We use our brain. We decide how to use our brain. Not the brain doesn't tell us how it is going to behave. This is a metaphor of our life. The wagon here defines our life. And the horses are the senses. The sense of sight, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the other five senses that we got, those are the horses. They pull the wagon, they take the wagon where the wagon should go. And the horses are being steered by the reins. The metaphor says that those reins is our ego identity, and then the wagoneer is the intellect. So theoretically, that is how it should be. The intellect should be using the ego identity it uses the ego identity, that's the only thing that is God, to run the horses that take our life wherever it ought to go. Okay? The owner, the person who owns life, that is the spirit, that is invisible. You don't see the owner there, but the wagoneer is the intellect. The reins are the ego identity, and horses are our senses. Now, if the wagoneer cannot control the horses, then the horses are so powerful they can take us wherever. They can throw us in the ditch, or they can, if they are steered right, they can take us to our purpose, our life purpose, whatever we define our life purpose is. Otherwise, the life purpose is thrown out of the window. Executive functions of modern neurophysiology. Modern neurophysiology talks about a nervous system that is spread all over the body, that gets the information from various parts of the body and take it to the brain. So this is where the brain is, and the nervous highways run through the spine, okay, to the brain. And on top of the spine, we got what is called the brain stem. This runs all the autonomic systems of the body, all the unconscious systems. For example, our heart pulses. We don't know it is pulsing. It is pulsing automatically. We are breathing 24/7 automatically. Our food is being digested. It's running automatically. So the brain stem runs that, okay? But the nervous system has to pass through the brain stem. And then a little bit higher, we got what is called the limbic brain. And this runs all the instinctive life. Instincts work. They gain control of us through the sensory faculty, which is unconscious. But after we live an instinctive life or an instinctive experience, then we know something happened. We did something. Okay? Most of the time, the instincts work in such a way that they get control of our life unconsciously, and then we become conscious of whatever happened. Okay, so they are in a way subconscious. So subconscious uh, uh, mind, the equivalent of that in neurophysiology is the limbic brain. There's a little bit higher. Here is the limbic brain, brain stem is here. And then on top of the head, we wear a cap kind of a thing. And that cap is a neocortex. A cortex means a kind of a covering, a kind of a hat that we wear just below the skull. And that is where all our consciousness works through. All our thinking is done with that part, and whatever we want to do consciously, if we want to move our arm, it is done through the neocortex. Okay, and then the front part of the neocortex is called the prefrontal cortex. This is where the intellect works from. Okay, and this is what the neurophysiology calls the executive brain. And as far as the metaphor of the wagon was concerned, this is the wagoneer. So we have the wagoneer, we have the CEO installed, but the enterprise is out of control because of the instincts that we have. They climb up and they take charge unconsciously. And this is what, this gives you a list of capabilities modern executive function says that we should have so that we can regulate ourselves. Executive functions is a set of capabilities that can regulate ourselves to attain our purpose. So I am now, today, in a certain state. I have a purpose. That purpose can be achieved from another state. How I gain control over myself, how do I regulate myself so that a year later or 2 years later or 10 years later, I can achieve my purpose. That is what executive brain is. So it is self-regulation, and they have a list of 6 things that we need to: self-directed attention, self-directed inhibition. Inhibition means we cannot let the horses go wherever they want to go. We got to be in charge. Okay, we have to inhibit our behavior. Some things we can do, some things we should not be able to do. Self-directed inhibition, self-directed sensory motor actions, self-directed speech, emotion and motivation, all self-directed, and self-directed, even our leisure should be self-directed. We should have full control of whatever we do. And if we can get a hold of this set of capabilities, then we will be in charge of our life. Then we can go after our purpose. Otherwise, we are unable to. Okay? And it's all about self-regulation. There's a couplet here from Urdu. It says that we should be able to elevate ourselves to an extent that God comes to us and asks us as to what we want, what He wants us to do, rather than we depending upon God. God should be asking us, what is it that we want? Okay, that is how much control we need to have of ourselves. And this is by a poet, very famous poet of Urdu. Okay, but the problem is that we are living through an area of an epidemic of executive functions. There are so many executive function disorders, people walking around with total lack of control, lack of regulation on their own behavior. Okay, the practice of ancient yoga contemplation enables the CEO to develop his or her executive functions. Okay, so that is the practice, the modern practice, modern science of executive functions. They only list the capabilities that we need to have. This actually cultivates the capabilities that we have. The state of deep contemplation is one of the 4 states in which human beings exist. When we talk about those 4 states, this is the natural state of waking. Okay. I guess this is what is happening. Waking state. This is natural. 8-10 hours a day we work and we are awake. So this is how our state is then. There is a conscious behavior that's going through us. We see what is going on outside. There is a stimulus going in. Whatever we perceive outside in the environment is a stimulus that goes in, and that stimulus may be responded to by our sensory faculty or our ego or our intellect. Okay, so, and if the intellect says, okay, let's respond like this, ego may say, no, forget it. I don't like that response. There's a negotiation going on at every level, because every level has got its own consciousness. And although ego should be in charge, but whatever the ego says doesn't really go. The people downstairs, they use their own mind rather than listening to the executive. And then there is a subconscious activity going on. Okay, and that is going on, conscious activity going on, and then the unconscious activity is going on. This is the unconscious activity that runs my body, that runs my heart, my breathing function, my digestive system, all the rest of it. Okay, the unconscious, subconscious, and the conscious activity is all going on at the same time in the waking state. And then we have a dream sleep state. All that happens in dream state is that there's no conscious activity going on. The conscious sensory faculty, the conscious part of the sensory faculty goes to sleep, and the subconscious is still going on. And the unconscious is going on. And then the dreamless sleep state, in the dreamless sleep state, there is no subconscious activity. Unconscious is still going on. I still need to breathe. My heart still needs to work. But this part is out of action. And because there is no subconscious activity going on, you can say there are no instinctive activity going on, and then we really have a good sound sleep. So rest and total rest, they all depend upon how much our life is in control of our instincts. And then there's the contemplative state. In contemplative state, even this part of the subconscious that happens here in deep sleep, that is also sidetracked. Okay, we are fully conscious, and we are running the unconscious activities also consciously. Remember, the unconscious was run by the brain stem. Now it is being run by the neocortex. All right. So this is what is the contemplative state. We are not in touch with any subconscious or unconscious part of the life. the unconscious part of life, we are running it with our conscious neocortex, and that is the deep contemplative state. And yogic effort takes us systemically from the waking state to the contemplative state. So that is what we are going to be talking about. Yoga maps a route one takes from the natural waking state to the conscious contemplative state. Yoga identifies 8 landmarks on the way. These landmarks may be interpreted as steps or components of the yogic discipline of exploring the truth one is seeking. The purpose of yogic contemplation is the application of focused attention in an undistracted manner to an object of passionate interest to the contemplator. The object unveils all its secrets by itself once you put your attention on it. It reveals itself as it indeed is, without any subjectivity on the part of the contemplator. The joy of seeking transforms the contemplator with its embodiment of what is being contemplated, and you gain an intimate, actionable, and experiential knowledge and understanding of what is being contemplated. Okay, so contemplation is used for exploration, it is used for research, it is used for authenticating what you already know. So contemplation is not needed if there is no curiosity to explore and know. If you think you know everything, you have a belief system, you don't have to go beyond it. You have no need to examine the belief system that you have. You don't contemplate, because contemplation takes effort. If you accept explanations without examination, you don't need to contemplate. But if you have the capacity to think critically, you want to know. Contemplation is not needed if there's a lack of inhibition of instinctive actions leading to emotional instability. So if you cannot inhibit your behavior, you cannot regulate yourself, you cannot contemplate. There's a lack of passion or attention capacity, you cannot contemplate. Okay, if you have no passion, no purpose in life, then there's no need. So to encourage people to explore, we have to encourage curiosity to explore and know rather than accept. Offer questions and not answers. Offer problems but not solutions. Teach less so that people can learn more. And this is very counterintuitive to what we do in teaching. We have a half-hour period, we have so many goals we need to achieve. I need to teach this, this, and this in the next half hour. My students must learn this and this and this. So that kind of model of teaching has to be rethought. The biggest question, sorry.
You crawled out of our mother's wombs and you see a newborn child, how he's looking. He's asking, who, what the hell is all this? So much creation. You see question marks in his eyes? What? So much. Who did all this? Obviously, first he looks at his mother. Well, the mother delivered you, but she can't deliver the planet. Then you look at your father. Well, obviously he can't do all this. Then you look at every other adult around you. Nobody seems to be capable of doing all this.
So this is the biggest question in life. And you give answers to this question, then you stifle the curiosity of a child to know. Okay, so that's where problems begin. 8 components of yoga. yoga makes you in charge of your life. It makes you your own psychotherapist, physiotherapist, or behavioral therapist, and your own research worker and your own teacher, because you learn through contemplation. Contemplative, self-organized learning of your body, mind, and behavior by being conscious of your physiology and your psychology. Yoga says, well, you got a body and you got a mind. Know yourself. How does your body work? How does your mind work? If you are conscious of your body and your mind, then you will know how to work them to achieve your purpose. That essentially is what yogic mantra is. Make the unconscious conscious. We are living life unconsciously. Live it consciously. We are doing exercise unconsciously. Sure, body gets a little bit stronger, but do we get the full experience of the knowledge of physiology or how my body works? Same thing about the mind. If we are aware of how my mind works, then I don't need to go to a psychologist or a shrink. There are two preparatory components of yoga. One is yama. Yama means inhibitions, set of moral code of 5 don'ts. So no lusting, no violence, no lying, no stealing, no acquisitiveness. Don't hoard, don't gather things around you. And then there are 5 observances, 5 don'ts and 5 do's, okay? And the 5 observances are live a clean life, okay? Clean your body and your mind. Contentment, austere lifestyle. Don't live with a lot of luxury. Self-study of both inner and outer nature. Look at a tree, study it. Okay, look at water. Study the nature outside, study the nature inside, how your mind is working. And see how they connect with each other. So, and then there are 6 practices, okay? The first practice is asana. Asana means physical posture. Physical postures are necessary for so many things, and you are in different physical postures in a waking state. So this is the same diagram as we saw of the waking state. This is where yoga starts, okay? So the yoga that you learn from a yoga studio, the various postures of yoga, they're meant to teach you how your physiology works. If you go from, this posture to this posture, what are the muscles that you're moving, which muscles you're relaxing, which muscles you're tensing. You should learn that so that you understand how your body works. You should be able to, when you have a pain in your back, you should be able to say which muscle I should stretch and which muscle I should relax so that the pain in the back goes off. You should know how to stretch, which muscle to stretch, which muscle to twist, so that you become your own psychotherapist. Okay? Yogic postures for physical culture must lead to experiential understanding of the physiology. That is essentially what yoga teaches. Yogic postures are not performed quickly, they are performed slowly so that you are conscious of the body. And then you're talking of breath regulation. Again, that is done in conscious state of mind. Make breath regulation, breath is an unconscious activity, do it consciously. That is the only unconscious activity of the body that we can take conscious charge. Once you take conscious charge of breathing, then indirectly our physiology is such that we take conscious charge of all the unconscious activities of the body. And this is the system that we have to push the brakes on how the body is controlled. Okay, and these two things, without the ability to sit and without the ability to breathe deep, you cannot enter into contemplative state if you are a normal human being. But if you are passionate about something that you can focus on, you got a strong control on your mind, you can. But most of us lack that. So most of us lacking that. We need a physiological crutch, and physiological crutch is provided by the breathing system. And what happens when we use the breathing system, we have two kinds of nerves, two branches of autonomic nervous system. Okay, one branch is called the sympathetic and the other one is called the parasympathetic. And the Sanskrit names that come from the Vedas is Ida for this and Pingala for that. So the activities of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic must be coherent for our consciousness to rise from the basic instinctive bare survival level to the level of heart feeling and then to the level of the intellect. Otherwise, we can't use the intellect. If our consciousness is here, I cannot use this. So we got to take our consciousness from here to there, and that running the sympathetic and the parasympathetic coherently can do. Okay, and what is incoherent, you can see that this is coherent learning. Both our activities are coherent with each other, and the consciousness is shown by the blue thing here. When the two, sympathetic and parasympathetic, running coherently, consciousness is rising from the bare survival to the sensual pleasure level, and then to gut feeling level, then to heart feeling level, and then to actual observation, cognitive perception, careful seeing of things, and then knowing and will, and then going into the spiritual wisdom. That's where you are going beyond the rational intellect. So at the end, the consciousness rises from here to there, and if we keep on going, we can bring it right up to the top. And when things are incoherent, then the level of consciousness will start to fall back to the bare survival level. And this is our physiology. This is from a book of physiology, or you can also say this from the Vedas. Okay, so there is a correlation. Again, when we become coherent, it'll start rising again. Okay, this diagram will be a small practicum of 2 minutes. When you contemplate, this is how you sit. Your posture must be stable and it must be comfortable. So if I'm sitting tall, okay, the weight of the upper body is being transmitted to the seat through the bone structure, through the spine. So I will not have muscle ache. And the weight of the head is transmitted to the spine through, because the two are aligned. Okay, the head is, the posture should be such that the weight of the head and the weight of the upper body gets transmitted to the seat through the bone structure rather than through the people who work in the offices. If they use this posture, they'll never have backache. And so this is the posture, and then breath regulation. Those two things are the key to yogic contemplation. Oh, sorry. We're going to practice it. Breathe along with this. When the ball is running downward, exhale, the ball is going up, inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And this is conscious breath regulation. Normally we breathe 15, 16 breaths per minute. Here we are breathing 6 breaths per minute. Okay. And you will feel that your mind and body, they both get calm as a result of this. Second minute starting. This is the end of 2-minute practicum. We'll do a 10-minute one later on. Our body and mind are the only two tools that we got. Okay, if we learn how to use them right, we can achieve whatever we want to do. Achievement is limited by our lack of control of the use of the body and the mind. So these two practices, the practice of sitting up tight and sitting up tall, okay, and the practice of deep breathing, two things that can take you into contemplation. Then the third landmark that yoga talks about is inhibiting perception by external cognitive organs. So this part is gone. Okay. Once you sit down tall and start deep breathing, you will find, and close your eyes, you will find that you're not perceiving anything in the outside world, but you're still connected with the subconscious memory. And then the next stage would be you disconnect from the subconscious memory at that level. The amount of mental traffic will slow down. When we start from normal waking state, our mind goes from one object to another, to another, to another. So many objects come to mind in quick succession. We can't focus on anything. In this state, you will have maybe a limited number of objects coming to your mind. 1 object, 2 objects, 3 objects, 4, but not a lot more. Okay, so you control the movements of the mind in this state to a few objects of which are primary of primary importance in your mind. So those objects will stay, others will fade away from memory. And then if you go next, this state is called dhyana. You pay attention to one object. Those then 3 or 4 objects will also become one. Okay, so this is in Sanskrit called dhyana. In Japanese, it's called Zen. The word dhyana becomes Zen in Japanese. Okay, and here you're looking at that one object, but you're looking at the one object from the sensory point of view, and also maybe not from the sensory point of view, from the ego point of view. So there is your subjectivity mixed in. You pay attention to this, you are still getting a subjective knowledge. Okay, and you are in dhyana state. You may also be losing attention, so you're trying to maintain attention on that one object. That is what you're doing. And then the next stage is the stage of samadhi, in which that one object you're totally focused on. There is no distraction at all whatsoever from the senses or from the ego identity. Then it is your intellect and your ego identity that are looking at the two of them together. So you get your complete subjective knowledge. And then if you continue, the ego identity also is sidelined, and then you have the objective knowledge, the knowledge of the object as it is, whatever that object may be. And then if you continue still, even that disappears. And then you are in a state when you can self-realize yourself. Your consciousness now is conscious of itself rather than of any object. Now, if people who are able to do that, these are 2 examples of modernity. You know Albert Einstein. He was a clerk in a Swiss patent office, no laboratory access at all. All his work was contemplative. He had mathematics as a tool, his mathematics and his mind. And this guy was another clerk. He was a clerk in the Port Trust Office, Madras, and this guy died at the age of 31. And it's said of him that he rediscovered the number theory of Europe of the last 150 years and gave direction to it for the next 150 years. And he was very poor. He had a slate on which he worked. He would write a few steps of his mathematics down on his slate, and then paper was expensive. He would write it very carefully so that not too much paper is being used. And by the time he got to Cambridge, he became the fellow of Royal Society of Mathematicians in Cambridge. That's in Cambridge, he started to learn how to think step by step. So his theorems, whatever he wrote on his one line, people got PhDs. Hundreds of people have got PhDs on his mathematics, and still his work is not finished. His work is not all proven. This is what happens. This is the capability that you achieve when you contemplate, you pay attention to one subject. And countries where contemplative learning has taken place, India, that is where yoga originated. They discovered the science of contemplation. And at one time, that was a culture. So you pay attention to an object. the object reveals to you, and you know its true nature. Deeper the attention, deeper the knowledge. The knowledge is not outside the classroom. You have the knowledge. You have lived it all. It is there in your genes. Okay, all you have to do is uncover it. Contributions to yogic culture, disciplines like non-duality, non-violence, veneration of nature, metaphysics, philosophy, logic, public policy, economics, space, time, metaphysics, logic, decimal number system, astronomy. So much work done in astronomy and mathematics in India when we have the yogic culture. And disciplines like, these two got repeated. Not thinking, not doing the unconscious consciously. For a continuous duration of nearly 1700 years from year 1 AD, India has been the topmost economy, constituting 35 to 40% of gross domestic product. And this information is available, okay? And this is what the other people thought about India. I like to think that someone somewhere will see the deepest thinking of India made its way to Greece, and from there to the philosophy of our time. That's John Archibald Wheeler, theoretical physicist who coined the black holes. This guy is Einstein. We owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been possible. Again, Einstein. When I read the Bhagavad Gita and reflect how God created the universe, everything else seems to be superfluous. Max Muller, a German guy. If I'm asked which nation has been advanced in the ancient world in respect to education and culture, then I would say it was India. And there are so many of quotes. This is Humboldt. Humboldt was the person who started the University of Berlin. He was the founder. And he was also the person who came up with the Humboldtian model of education. And that was the Humboldtian model of education was the model that the Nordic countries started to adopt in the late 19th century. Okay, and they call it Bildung. Bildung essentially means how to build humanity. This is a German word. It's got no translation, exact translation into English, but that's what it means. And look at those two countries. The state of democracy, political rights, equality, personal freedom is such that material prosperity, oh, sorry. I have to stop this guy. That tells me my 50 minutes are over. Where is it? Where did it go? I can't stop it. I can't mute myself. But anyways, I've lost it.
Is it on your computer, Sayaji?
Low income inequality, high level of social support, life satisfaction, all kinds of life satisfaction. Okay, dismiss. No. Low level of happiness, inequality. They've been adjudged the happiest countries in the world. United Nations started compiling a happiness report of various countries. And the 5 Nordic countries have always been, in the last 10 years, amongst the top 10 happiest countries. And this is what you find from the happiness report of the United Nations. It is available free of charge on the internet. I can give you a link to it, and you can read for yourself how these countries became happy. Now, 10-minute practicum. Again, it's the same thing as before. What we're going to do is sit up tall and look at the ball. When the ball here, the screen says exhale, then you exhale. When the screen says inhale, you inhale. So, oh, sorry. This is exhale. Inhale now. Ball goes up. Inhale, exhale. And when we are breathing at 6 breaths per minute, we are breathing in a lot of air. And make sure that air makes your belly expand when you inhale, and your belly should contract when you exhale. So you're breathing into the belly, and you're breathing through the nose only, mouth stays closed. And you're not trying to hold the breath in or out. So all the instructions are there on the screen. Just follow them. And establish this way of breathing. And when this pattern of breathing is established, you can close your eyes and keep going with this pattern of breath. And you will find that your mind can keep the breath pattern going and also think of another object that you want to contemplate on. So with the eyes closed, you are breathing deep, and then your mind is also focused on an object of contemplation. And this is how you start contemplating. After a while, you don't have to pay attention to breath at all. It will be going like this. It will become an automatic feature as long as your mind is focused on the object of contemplation. If your mind loses focus on the object of contemplation, you may have to go back to breath again. Once the focus is uninterrupted, your breath pattern will be deep and your mind will be focused. Experience it for a few minutes. Ten minutes are over. It helps if you put your palms on your eyes and rub them on your cheeks. Slowly open the eyes and expose them to light. And that essentially is the end of the practicum. I can stop the screen sharing, and Garima, thank you very much for the time. I've gone over by, it's 10 after 11, so.
Not to worry. That's all good. Thanks, Dayaji. That was really insightful. And I think that the 10 minutes was helpful in trying to internalize isn't necessarily the right word, but at least absorb and better absorb your lecture over the past just less than an hour. So now, folks, we're going to take a 10-minute break. And then, so we will reconvene at about 20 past 11. And after that, we will have a short presentation. Hopefully all of our IT issues are resolved by Robin. And then at around 11:35, 11:40, we will start our discussion. So we'll see you then. See you in 10.